I just got back from a race weekend in Colorado with my True Tribe team. Literally just came back. And I trained them for this event, but somehow I came in DFL. If you don't know what DFL means, that means dead fucking last. That's right. The coach was dead fucking last. Do I look worried about it at all? Of course I'm not. Well, outside of the fact that my ultra sign up score is going to get affected by it, but really, who cares? Hey, if you're new here to my channel, my name is Coach Lisa from the Running University. I'm here to help you put the fun in your run and to help you celebrate finish lines that you never thought possible. And if you're new here to my channel, please go ahead and subscribe. And if you're back, thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. First, let's talk about a couple of these acronyms that you may or may not have heard depending on where you are in your running journey right now. There's three acronyms. Okay, one is called a DNS, which means did not start. Then there's DFL, which is dead fucking last. And then there's DNF, which is did not finish. And there's a statement that goes around in the running community that says it's better to be dead fucking last than not finishing than not starting. And honestly, I used to subscribe to this idea, but not so much anymore. Why? I'll tell you a little bit about that in a bit, but let me get back to my story. So on Sunday morning, we were getting ready to do the race. We were doing an 11K, and this is a really hard race. It starts at 9,200 feet of elevation, and you climb 1,700 feet in 3.5 miles, and then you turn around and come back down. So it's a lot of elevation very quickly. It's a very steep race. So as I prepared for this race myself, I really only had a couple of goals. One goal was I really wanted to keep working on my pole technique because currently at this point I am going to be helping out the Trans Rockies race. I'm volunteering and I'm leading the back of the pack group, and we use poles a lot, so I just wanted to keep honing in on my pole technique, and this race was perfect for that. And really I just wanted to get more experience in altitude and in the elevation because again I'm going to be back in Colorado. So my goals for this race really were not a race. We're not to run the race. It was really to focus on some of those items. So going into it, those were really my only goals. I wasn't really worried about anything. And as we started off, I started with a couple of the ladies in my tribe. And, you know, we kind of just really noticed that we were at the end of the pack and we were leapfrogging with some people. But then, you know, basically as we got through the entire race, I kind of felt like I think we're going to be last. And as a matter of fact, if you go look at the race stats right now for that race, I was dead fucking last. We came in together. They were a little bit ahead of me. But really, part of that was intentional. I really started the race thinking I didn't care when I was going to finish. I was there to have fun with my tribe. And I was also really there to work on other things, elevation and altitude. I was not there for speed at all because I'm not worried about my speed right now. So that's where I was. So basically, even though I was DFL, I really don't care, right? Because the purpose of my race that day was about the elevation and the altitude. So I reached my goals. That's awesome. Generally speaking, I'm not the type of person who measures my running success based on speed. And if you go to this video up here, you'll hear a little bit more about what I do put as far as what my success is and how I measure my success in a race. So let's go back to that idea where we say a DFL is better than a DNF, which is better than a DNS. So again, coming in last is better than not finishing versus not starting. And here is why I don't believe that anymore. I used to. And because I've grown in my running journey and I've coached more people along the way, really all of those, it just really depends on what's happening on that day in the race. Anything could happen to anybody. A DNS is a did not start. I also had one of those once. You know, I very rarely get injuries, but making a call that morning of deciding not to start was very important because I had a little bit of an injury. I was starting to get some plantar fasciitis. I had made some changes in my shoes and I could have went out, right? I spent some money on the race and you start thinking about I've done the training, but at the end of the day, I decided not to start. So I have a DNS on my record, but it was a really good call because I could have made that injury so much worse. So I just decided not to start, and guess what? I volunteered instead and still had a fabulous time and got to help out the other runners. So if you decide not to start a race, maybe because you're feeling a little injury and you're making the call not to start, that's a great idea. That's a really good plan versus starting it with an injury and then possibly injuring yourself, and then maybe you won't be able to run for the next 6 months. So really at the end of the day, it boils down to on what your goals are. Okay. And then if you think about a DNF, a did not finish, another great example that I have for a did not finish was the same exact race last year. Last year I did the 12 miler. I was training for more mileage, so I wanted to get the 12 miler in. And I know that at the top of the race there's a scramble, and it's at I'm afraid of heights. So when I got there last year, I kind of looked at it, I gave it a good college try, and then I was like, I'm out. And that was my very first DNF. Of course, again, it goes on my record on Ultra Sign Up that I didn't finish, but who cares, right? My goal for last year's race was to get the elevation and the altitude, and it was training. I had done a marathon the day before. So for me, it really, again, the example is, what is the goal for you for that race? I'm almost hardly ever really racing in a race. They're events. Most of my races are training runs for another race. And when I race, I'm usually not racing. I'm not going to win the race. So it just depends on your goals. So one of my number one mantras that I've learned to use, and I really encourage all my runners to use, is to think about the fact that I am writing my own running story. And everybody has their own running story. You just don't know what's going on in people's lives. And you know what? Who cares? You're there to do your own thing and just keep focusing on yourself. So regardless of whether it might be a DNS or it might be a DNF or it might be a DFL, you have to make that call for yourself. And this goes into the whole mindset part of running, right? It's very easy to be disappointed in yourself if you've made a decision not to start or to, DNF in a race because you might hurt yourself or make it worse, or even just being dead fucking last. Who cares, right? But these could be things that could affect you mentally. These are exactly the type of things that we go over in my True Tribe community. Who is the True Tribe? The True Tribe team are my group of ladies, and we train together, we learn together, and we grow together. And these are the types of things that I teach them in the tribe. If you're interested in checking us out, go ahead in the description and find the link, and you can sign up to possibly win 3 free months in the True Tribe. We'd love to have you. Again, this is for women only.